Good morning, crime community. I'm here to finish reading out The Devil in the Belfry. The object is situated in the steeple of the house of the town council. The town council are all very little, round, oily, intelligent men with big saucer eyes and fat double chins, and have their coats much longer and their shoe buckles much bigger than the ordinary inhabitants of Vandervotenmittis. Since my sojourn in the borough, they have had several special meetings and have adopted three important resolutions: that if it is wrong to alter the good old course of things, there is nothing tolerable about Vondervaltomitis, and we will stick by our cloaks, our clocks, and our cabbages. Above the session room of the council is the steeple, and in the steeple is a belfry, where exists and has existed time out of mind the pride and wonder of the village, the great clock of the borough of Vondervotenmittis, and this is the object of which the eyes of the old gentlemen are turned who sit in the leather-bottomed armchairs. The great clock has 7 faces, and one on each of the sides of the 7 steeples, so that it can be readily seen from all quarters. Its faces are large and white, and its hands are heavy and black. There is a belfry man whose sole duty it is to attend to it, and this duty is the most perfect of sinecures, for the clock of Vandervotenmittis was never yet known to have anything the matter with it. Unlike lately, the bare supposition of such a thing was considered heretical. From the remotest period of antiquity to which the archives have reference, the hours have been regularly struck by the bell ring. And indeed, the case was just the same with the other clocks and watches in the borough. Never was such a place for keeping the true time. When the larger clapper thought proper to say 12 o'clock, all its obedient followers opened their throats simultaneously and responded like a very echo. In short, the good burghers were fond of their sauerkraut when they were proud of their clocks. All people who hold sinecure offices are held in more or less respect, and as the belfry man of Vondermittis was the most perfect of the sinecures, he is the most perfectly respected man in any of the world. He is the chief dignitary of the borough, and the very pigs look upon him as a sentiment of reverence. His coat tail is very long. His pipe, his shoe buckles, his eyes, and his stomach are very bigger than those of the other old gentlemen of the village, and as for his chin, it is only double but triple. He has thus painted the happy estate of Vandervotenmittis. Alas, that so far a picture should have experienced the reverse. But this has long been saying among the wisest inhabitants, that no good shall come from whatever the hills, and it really seemed that the whole world had in them something of the spirit of prophecy. It wanted 5 minutes of noon, and the day before yesterday, when they appeared a very odd-looking on the subject of the ridge of the eastward. So an occurrence, of course, attracted several universal attention, and every little old gentleman who had in a leather-bottomed armchair turned one of his eyes with a stare of dismay upon the phenomenon, and still keeping upon the other the clock of the steeple. By this time it was wanted only 3 minutes to noon. The droll object in question was perceived to be a very diminutive, foreign-looking young man. He descended the hills of a great rate, so that everybody had soon a good look at him. He was readily the most finicky little personage that had ever been seen in Vondermittis. His countenance was of a dark snuff color, and he had a long hooked nose, pea's eyes, and a wide mouth, and an excellent set of teeth, which later he seemed anxious of displaying as he was grinning from ear to ear. When his mustachios and whiskers, there were none of the rest of his face to be seen. His head was uncovered and his hair neatly done up by the papelitos. His dress was a tight-fitting, swallow-tailed black coat. From one of those pockets dangled a vast length of white handkerchief, black cashmere knee breeches, black stockings, and stumpy-looking pumps with huge bunches of black satin ribbons for bows. Under one arm he carried a huge chateau de bras, and under the other a fiddle nearly 5 times as big as himself. In his left hand was a gold snuff box from which he had capered down the hills, cutting all manner of fantastical steps. He took snuff incessantly, with an air of the greatest possible self-satisfaction, God bless me, here is a sight for the honest burglars of Vandervoortmintus. To speak plainly, the fellow had, in spite of his grinning and audacious and sinister kind of face, and as he curveted right to the village, the old stumpy appearance of his pumps excited no little suspicion, and many a burglar who held him that day would have given a trifle for a peep beneath the white cambric handkerchief which hung so obtrusely from the pocket of his swallow-tailed coat. But what mainly occasioned a righteous indignation was that the scoundrelly Peeponjay, while he cut a fandango here and whirling wig there, he did not seem to have a remotest idea in the world of such a thing as keeping time in his steps. The good people of the borough had scarcely had a chance, however, to get their eyes thoroughly open when, just as he wanted half a minute of noon, the rascal bounced, as I say, right into the midst of them, gave a chiraz here and a balance there, and then, after a pirouette and a pas de cipher, pigeon-winged himself right up into the belfry of the house of the town council, where the wonder-stricken belfry man sat smoking in a state of dignity and dismay. But the little chap seized him at once by the nose, gave it a swing and a pull, clapped the big chapeau de bras upon his head, knocked it down over his eyes and mouth, and then lifted up the big fiddle, beat him with it so long and so soundly that, what with the belfry man being so fat and the fiddle being so hollow, you would have sworn that there was a regiment of double bass drummers all beating the devil's tattoo up in the belfry in the steeple of Vandervoortmintus. There is not knowing of what desperate act of vengeance was unprincipled attack might have aroused the inhabitants, but for the important fact that it is now wanting only half a second of noon. The bell was about to strike, and it was a matter of absolute and preeminent necessary that everybody should be well looked at his watch. It was evident, however, that just at this moment the fellow of the steeple was doing something that he had no business to do with the clock. But as it was now began to strike, nobody had any time to attend to his maneuvers. They all had all to count the strokes of the bell as it sounded. One, said the clock. Fine echoed with very little gentleman in every leather-bottomed armchair in Vandervoortmintus. Von, said his watch also. Von, said the watch, and his vrouw. And Von, said the watches of the boys, and the little gilt repeaters on the tails of the cat and the pig. Two, counted the big bell, and do, repeated all the repeaters. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, said the bell. Die, vor, weib, sechs, sieben, 8, 9, den, answered the others. 11, said the big one. Elben, assent the little ones. 12, said the bell. 12, said they replied, perfectly satisfied and dropping their voices. Undelf it is, and all the little old gentlemen putting up their watches, but the big bell had not done with them yet. 13, he said. Delf twofold, gasped the old gentleman, turning pale, dropping his pipes and putting down all the right legs from over his left knees. They're truthful, groaned they. 13, 13, amen goat, it is 13 o'clock. Why attempt to describe the terrible scene which ensued? All the Vandervoortmintus flew at once into the lamentable state of uproar. Vot et cum de mein pelle, roared all the boys. I've been hungry on this hour. What is come to mein kraut? Screamed all the vrouws. It has been done to rags for this hour. What is come to mein pipe? Swore all the little old gentlemen. Donder and Blitzen, it has been smoked out of this hour. And they filled them up again in a great rage, and sinking back in their armchairs, puffed away so fast and so fiercely that the whole valley was immediately filled with impenetrable smoke. Meantime, the cabbages all turned very red in their face, and it seemed as if old Nick himself had taken possession of everything in the shape of a timepiece. The clocks carved upon the furniture took to dancing as if bewitched, while those upon the mantelpieces could scarcely contain themselves for fury, and kept such a continual striking of 13 and such a frisking and wriggling of their pendulums as this was really horrible to see. But worst of all, neither the cats nor the pigs could put up any longer with the behavior of the little repeaters tied to their tails, and resented it by scampering over all the palace, scratching and poking and squeaking and screeching, and caterwauling and squalling and flying into the faces and running under the petticoats of the people, and creating altogether most abominable din and confusion which it is possible for the reasonable person to conceive. And it makes matters still more distressing. The rascally little scapegrace in the steeple was inevitably exerting himself to the utmost. Every now and then one might catch a glimpse of the scoundrel through the smoke. There he sat in the belfry upon the belfry man, where he was lying flat upon his back. In his teeth the villain held the bell rope, which he kept jerking about his head, raising such a clatter that my ears ring again even to think of it. In his lap lay the big fiddle, of which he was scraping out of all the time in tune with both hands, making a great show and nincompoop of playing Judy O'Flanagan and Paddy O'Rafferty. Affairs being thus miserably suited, I left the place in disgust, and now appeal to aid of all lovers of correct time and fine kraut. Now let us proceed to a body in the borough and restore the ancient order of things in Vandervoortemitis by ejecting that little fellow from the steeple. That ends The Devil in the Belfry by Mr. Poe. I'm going to read one more poem by Emily Bronte, if I can see it. Plead for me. On thy bright eyes must answer now, when reason with a scornful brow is mocking at my overthrow. Oh, thy sweet tongue must plead for me, and tell why I have chosen thee. Stern reason is to judgment come, arrayed in all forms of gloom, and thou, my advocate, be dumb. No radiant angel speak and say, why did cast the world away? Why have I persevered to shun the common paths that others run, and on the strange road journeyed on, heedless alike of wealth and power, of glory's wrath and pleasure's flower? These once indeed seemed beings divine, and they perchance heard vows of mine, and say my offerings on their shrine, and careless gifts of seldom prized, and mine were worthily despised. So with a readily heart I swore to seek their altar stone no more, and gave my spirit to adore the ever-present phantom thing, my slave, my comrade, and my king. A slave because I rule thee will, thee still, incline thee to my changeful will, and make my influence good or ill, a comrade for by day and night. Thou art my intimate delight, my darling pain that wounds and sears, and wirings a blessing out from tears, by demeaning me to earthly cares, and yet a king through prudence well, they have taught thy subject to rebel, and I am wrong to worship where faith cannot doubt, no hope to spare. Since my own soul can't grant my prayer, speak, God of visions, plead for me, and tell me why I have chosen thee. That is a good question for everyone to ask, isn't it? What loyalty is, what divorce is, what separation is, why people get married or divorced, why people get into arranged marriages because their families think it's the best for them. If you think there's any truth or like in what I'm saying here, please like and subscribe, and ask yourself your question. Why did you marry the person you married? Why did you get divorced? Why did you remarry? Why did you not tell your husband about your children? Have a nice day.